Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to week 12 of Look Who's Chalking. Do I have my weeks right? Every date is blurred to me. Week 12, correct? You know, Thanksgiving, right. Week 12. This could be yes, week 12. Look Who's Chalking. We just had the Thanksgiving games yesterday. Hopefully, your lineups, your Thursday lineups, treated you well, and your Thanksgiving lineup treated you well. Gary, what was at your Thanksgiving table? Did you have the 95% owned stuffing? Was that there?
It was there. We had two types of stuffing. We had like a vegan stuffing and a regular chalk stuffing. And you know what? Great food.
I unfortunately fade stuffing like I did Jonathan Taylor last week, and it really cost me dearly. I still stand by what I said about playing Naji Harris, and
it was the right move.
If you're incorrect about Diggs and Allen, then just flush the whole lineup. So Taylor went off, and while I managed to weasel a lineup or two, that was simply because Chalkfest 2021, which was known as Chiefs versus Cowboys, completely busted. It made for such a low cash line last week.
Yep, nearly all of the chalk busted last week. And here's the thing. So I went on the Established a Million show and on Established Run, and we talked a lot about Jonathan Taylor on the other side of the Bills main stack as a great way to get different people aren't playing Taylor. And I did a good amount of that, but it didn't really matter because the Bills side busted so hard too that it's like you probably, if you nail the construction around that and you hit the right guys, the Jefferson types and everything, then you might have still had a chance with a Diggs, Allen, Taylor stack. But you were better off just using Taylor as a one-off in stacks like around Rodgers or whatever else. So, a weird week last week where obviously there were paths to KC Dallas failing, but to that extent, it
reminds me last year, if you remember, the Rams had one of the best offenses, even with Goff. And Seattle had a great offense and bad defense, and they were the 4 o'clock game right around this time of the year, and everyone was putting Woods and Kupp and Metcalf and Lockett, and they all busted out. And I remember the Rams had one touchdown from Malcolm Brown, one from Akers, one from Henderson, and there were Josh Reynolds had a touchdown, and every single major player busted. And it just reminded me, every year there's going to be one, maybe two games that everybody, it almost makes me wonder, should you just fade it and try to hit riches by fading one of those games, It's almost the same thing I was telling you about chalk last week. I feel like if you play a super chalk play, they do well, you pass nobody, or they do awful, and now you've lost. Yep. It's almost like a lose-lose.
There is an argument to be made from a game theory optimal perspective that it is optimal to just fade the game that's going to get the mega chalk of the week, or at least go well under compared to what the field's playing. Yeah, of course, there's an argument to that. Yes,
definitely. It was weird. And yesterday, I don't know, just Thanksgiving, 3-game slate.
I got too cute with my build. I did not do well on Thanksgiving yesterday. It's funny because Josh Allen ended up being the perfect quarterback. I 45% Josh Allen. The problem was I hiked up Schultz so much when Lamb went out. I thought Schultz was, and he should have had a bigger day than he did. But my tight end spot was overwhelmingly Dalton Schultz. So then I needed that Knox piece, which I didn't get in enough, and it was. I think if you look at the perfect lineup, it was everything came out of those last two games except Darnell Mooney. Yeah. So Mooney snuck in, which probably was pretty predictable. And at the end of the day, it ended up being pretty chalky.
Really, Wilson wasn't in the perfect lineup with all those.
He was Wilson, okay. But you're saying Cedric Wilson, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's just so Darnell Mooney was the only guy from the first game, the Chicago-Detroit game. So Reynolds didn't get in, which people thought Reynolds might have got in. At how he went out. But besides that, it was really chalk, except Deshaun Jackson, who was only 1% owned. So you could have played a pretty chalky lineup just with the Cowboys, Raiders, and Bills Saints game, and just threw in Deshaun as your cheap guy.
Well, who's always what I think contributed to that a lot? Two of the chalkiest players, Waller and Swift they left the game.
Yep.
Of course. I mean, that's
no Saints got in and no Lions got in. So 3-game slates are just a completely different animal. You have to make all different rules. You let players go against the defense. You have to let triple stacks. It's just I don't like them. I wish I didn't go as heavy as I did yesterday, but it's Thanksgiving. I wanted some action, but and anyway, we move on.
And I always get disappointed when a guy named Tony lets me down. I feel like I have a certain connection with all Tonys out there. Okay. It's a no. That you're a Tony. I swear, growing up, we called each other Tony. Like my friend, there was a certain subset of my friends. I swear to you, if you embodied certain Tony qualities, and like it's a little bit of, it's like kind of Italian, but not really. Like if you if you just live a certain way, you're a Tony, and you'd call someone like, "Yo, what's up, Tone?" Even if it's not, I swear to you, my buddy was
it's
hanging out
like
with
man or my guy or dude or something.
Exactly,
it's just like Tone.
Exactly, like Tony. And my uncle does it with the name Mo. They call it. They're old school Italians. They call people. Oh, what's up, Mo? And mine was always Tony. And
it's unbelievable.
And one time, my buddy was hanging out with this girl. The girl happened to know me, and he goes, he said the phone was ringing, and he goes, "Oh, Andy's calling." And then he answered the phone, goes, "Hey, what's up, Tone?" And the girl was like, "What? I thought you said Andy was calling."
That's unreal. That's great.
Yeah.
Speaking of Tonys, did you like the Sopranos prequel? I don't think we ever spoke about it.
No, because without getting too much into it, I believe you're not allowed to make good movies anymore because, look, go watch The Sopranos and see how many times you're going to say, well, they would never allow that, even on HBO. They wouldn't allow that to be said on HBO. They wouldn't allow that. And if you can't do that, how are you going to make a realistic prequel to The Sopranos, which was probably even crazier before then?
Yeah,
you just can't.
I like that, of course, I'm not surprised you bring a different criticism than most people did, which was just that they didn't like the story. They thought it was a little slow. To me, the characters... Like the guy, the impressions of like the Paulie Walnuts and Sil were spot on, but it was almost a little too cartoonish for me. And
I just want you to rewatch The Sopranos at any point, and then just say, can you see them doing anything similar in the new movie?
Yeah,
and you know when push comes to shove, like when they throw something out there, they. That's for another podcast and another time. You don't want to get me worked up. Let's instead get me worked up about how I looked at this whole slate. I looked at it and I went, all right, cool. There's one quarterback I like.
Yep.
This is weird, man.
Yeah, no one pops on the surface. There's no way. Like you take a look, you open up that DraftKings, you start scrolling through the quarterbacks, and no one pops right off the bat. So.
And the good news is nobody's over 8,000.
Yep.
So if there is somebody you like, you're probably able to get him in. But I look at Tom Brady at the top, and then I go, okay, what am I supposed to do? Working my way down. If you want to go Hurts, who he had one of those Hurts type of games last week, and they're playing with confidence, okay. Stafford, you think he ain't gonna see those old Green Bay ghosts that he used to have I'm absolutely scared of him. Rodgers against that defense. With minimal kind of weapons, it feels like he's going to orchestrate a win rather than blow the roof off. Like last game was a better game for that indoors against the Vikings.
Yep.
Going down, Herbert, he's up and down. I feel like we're huge week garbage. Now on the road at Denver, it's so hard to trust him. Cousins at San Fran, you saw how he played during the playoffs. Burrow against Pittsburgh, you want to say yes, but every time you watch them, what did I send you on Twitter yesterday about T. Higgins being this kid I know tweeted that he's the ultimate Ponzi scheme?
Yeah, he is. That's true. That's true.
So it's just like, now you're already in the 5,000s. The other one, maybe I would say, and just because, like, if Brady, who's projected to have over 300 yards, I think he has the highest yard prop, 313.
Yeah.
If you want to go on the other side of that, Wentz.
Yeah. So here, and that's fine. I just don't think he's got the ceiling compared to some of these other guys. But I know, and I'm with you. And luckily, I think I can make arguments for and against everybody you named. And like, I think because no one does stand out, the way you build your quarterback pool this week is you go to Brady, who's an obvious solid play, and then you go to some of these other big names. Pick two or three, and hopefully you'll get something out of this podcast because I think I'll be able to make some arguments for them that somebody in this meh environment will go off. And then I think because it is such a just meh week for quarterbacks, this is a great week to pay down. So you talk about someone like Tyrod Taylor at whatever he is, 5,300, allows you to do so much with the rest of your build, and is at home against the Jets. He's only started 3 games this year. In 3 of those 4, he's been 16.5, 23, 19 points. and he's been on the road in much worse matchups in some of these. I think that, that's a spot that you could really look to. You don't even need to do much stacking. You could just kind of do it for the salary relief and then build the best plays around that. And then, I can make an argument for Cam once again, against the Dolphins at 5,600. Obviously, he's got the rushing, probably going to score a rushing.
I'm going to put a random one out there, and I threw this guy's name. I said, you have to know who he's playing. And it's the only time you should be able to look at him with a little bit of confidence. And you want to talk about fitting people into your lineup? You can do a double, you can do a triple, you can do quadruples. There's not an unaffordable player on this whole team, and that's the Candyman Teddy Bridgewater. If Herbert, flakes out on us, then we're screwed. They'll just do a running, But if Herbert plays well, because he clearly could. He could be the winging it, Herbert, putting up points left and right. You can mix and if you want to do Fant and Judy. You want to do Judy and old man Sutton, or not old man, but like we haven't heard from him in a long time. Any sort of double stack from there. And if you want to go Mike Williams the other way, he's in the 5,000s.
Yep.
So that's a cheap option that I'll throw in one of my zero balls tournament where I'll put it in like a $3 lineup, but I won't have the balls to do it in like a $100 lineup.
So I think let's do it this way this week then, because we are so unsure around quarterbacks. Let's start at the top and go down and use that as a way to talk about games. So let's start with Tom Brady, and let's talk about the game that honestly is the game we probably should be talking about the most anyway, which is Bucs-Colts.
This is the big one. One thing that maybe I'd like for you to guess, I know it's kind of early to still know for sure. Even though Jonathan Taylor is having these massive weeks, last week against a bad defense, he was unbelievably lowly owned. There's nothing more daunting than about to face the Tampa Bay defense. So is he going to be low owned, you think, again, relatively?
Well, up to that point,
especially at that price,
the Bills' defense was considered very good against the ground, right? Only Derrick Henry had gashed them. Besides that, they had been, they had slowed everyone down. So that's what I'm talking about, which is why he was so low owned. Right. Yeah.
So I'm saying,
I think here's the thing. You always talk about the regular guy, those casual guys. A lot of MVP buzz around Jonathan Taylor this week now. A lot of people thinking is he just like in the Christian McCaffrey tier, completely matchup proof. And I think early ownership projections are parsing that out. Right now, he's projected as the 5th highest owned guy at the slate, around 15%. So no, people aren't totally fading Taylor here, especially because you're going to use a lot of Brady. So people are going to think, oh, we can use him as a run back there. So I think he's totally fine once again, but you're not getting that, that discount, obviously.
Well, that means Gronkowski's going to be high owned because you can't be affording Brady and Evans and someone else big. I bet you Gronkowski's like the chalk of the town.
The reason Brady is cheap in all these guys is, we have that Monday night pricing for the Bucs, right? So they play the Giants Monday night. Gronk is underpriced at 4,400 for what he should be against the Colts. The one thing the Colts have not been able to do is stop tight ends. So Gronk is coming through around 10%. I think he's a really good cash game play if you're playing cash. I think that makes so much sense this week. Tournaments, I want to see where that final ownership settles in at, but I probably am correlating him heavily within this game still because he still has a low floor. I mean, it's not like, I get what Gronk is, and obviously Antonio Brown's still out, but I think, Godwin, Evans, all these guys, Godwin's coming through only at 7,000 right now, is the 3rd most owned guy on the slate, 16%. Evans is actually probably the guy that you might want to look at because he's only 7.4% right now. So I like Brady with Evans. And then what I really like is Pittman on the other side of this game. The problem is he's going to draw some ownership, but 12%, 5,600. We talked about how underpriced this guy is every week. Now this is actually a solid matchup. The Bucs are very good against the ground, average against the air, but people are throwing on them all day because the Bucs don't stop throwing.
Isn't it very subpar in the air?
Yeah, no, they're average to below average. Yeah. I mean, but it's the volume that makes these plays good against them, right? The Bucs do not took their foot off the gas ever. Yeah. So and the Colts are a good team, so you got to expect this is a solid competitive environment. Bucs are gonna be able to score. Colts will be able to score. There's obviously, I think this is a 53 over under for a reason. So Pittman at 5,600, and he fits so many constructions. Like he's just objectively a good play this week because you're going to correlate him, and it makes so much sense.
And you know what I love about Tampa Bay this week? This is one of the last chances you're going to get to know where all the targets are being funneled to. Like if you can afford it, you can do Brady, Godwin, Evans. Look what happened if you've done Brady, Godwin, Evans in the last 3 games. it's like they're going to be force-fed a certain amount of looks. Yes, now Gronkowski's back, but that's not like having Gronkowski and Brown back. Once you have Gronkowski and Brown back and Godwin and Evans, then you're going to have a lot of swing and misses. Then you have to be Gary to play the Bucks because you have to make all the combinations of all of them and put in 700 lineups just to make sure you have all the Bucks possibilities covered. So this might be one of the last chances we get to really hammer one of those Brady stacks like what he did against Chicago at home.
Yeah, and my only hesitancy with Brady here is he's going to draw some. I mean, again, quarterback's still spread out this week. I don't think anyone's going to be too chalky, but he's coming through around 10%. That's a good amount for a quarterback on any week, okay? So he's going to be chalky. He's on the road against a very hot Colts team, and he's on a short week. I just think if there is a letdown Brady spot, and the 53-point over-under, everyone's going to be expecting this game to go over. I'm not so confident in Brady in this spot.
I still think he's angry about that 2006 AFC championship.
He probably is. Well, that's actually a legit point. Like, he hates the Colts. He hates the Colts. He does. And I think going into Indy, he'll bring an extra something for that. And I'm not saying I don't like Brady, but I'm saying if you want an argument against it, I think that's your argument. Short week, chalk. Playing maybe the hottest opponent in the league right now. So that's really it. But moving on there, I think we could touch this game pretty quickly. Hurts rushed for 3 touchdowns last week. And, they're going into the Giants. The Giants, they fire Jason Garrett finally. Hopefully that gives them a little bit of a rallying.
It's going to give them something.
It's a division game. You'd imagine they're going to get up for it a little bit. Patrick Graham say this about, he's obviously taken a big step back as defensive coordinator this year as far as the way he's using this team, but he does do a solid job game planning against these rushing quarterbacks. I'm not so into Hurts this week, and I think the Giants are terrible. And we've talked about how disgraceful the Giants, but at the same time, he's got a floor, obviously.
I feel for you, man, because it is. So you're playing the. I know it's so crazy. I don't know how they get this out of me because, like I say, I truly don't care. I guess maybe because I guess I live in New York and I just could understand what it would be like to be a fan. But I'm watching them play the Bucks, having all those wide receivers on the field and just not trying to exploit the Bucs secondary, doing these weird 5-yard play. And Daniel Jones always looks like there's massive confusion, kind of like Eli. The play clock's always down to half a second. Everything looks panicked, rushed. Yeah, nobody's in sync. It's so bad.
Do
you like Sanders? Do you like Sanders at 5,100?
Yeah, I think Sanders is fine at 5,100. I think Saquon is fine at 63.
I think he's more than fine.
Yeah, okay.
I think this is a class. Do you remember earlier in the year? Oh, this guy, he doesn't really. Yep. And then one game later, the whole world, Saquon's back. I think this is going to be your chance to get the last time before Saquon's back, where he takes a couple of screens because this new offensive coordinator. Watch them try to get the ball in the playmakers' hands.
Yeah, no, and the thing with the Eagles is we've talked about this is they're actually good against the in-between tackles in the run, but they're really vulnerable in the middle of the field. So Freddie Kitchens is going to do a lot of screen passes to Saquon, a lot of little wheelbarrows, a lot of even putting Saquon in the slot. Like, I think he's got a 7-catch floor this week because that's how you attack the Eagles. The other reason you can go is the really crusty Evan Ingram because again they're the worst team in the league against tight ends. The Eagles are. So, but and again, new offensive coordinator. He's an athletic guy. He's going to try to get him involved. I think Evan Ingram's terrible, but. I do think there are pieces to use in this game. Dallas Goedert also, I think is
Tony had 14 targets last week.
Yeah, but I don't know if he's playing.
5,200.
I don't know if he's playing.
What's wrong with this guy?
Yeah, I mean, he can't stay on the field. It's crazy.
All right, why don't we go to?
I think it's probably like 60% he doesn't play. 65% he doesn't.
Wow.
Play. Yeah.
So the next one is actually both the quarterbacks. You got Stafford and Rodgers in what's the 4:00 game that everyone's going to be watching.
So
I really wanted to play A.J. Dillon because, he didn't – I think he left a bad taste in people's mouth. And because of what you saw these last few teams do to the Rams, be very physical with them up front and run it right down their throat, I thought this was going to be a good bounce-back spot where people would rather use Darrell Henderson at like 5,800. But I need Aaron Jones not to play.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And Aaron Jones came back to practice in limited fashion on Wednesday. I think he's ramping up a little bit. It sounds like a true question mark, 50-50, maybe even 55-45 that he's going to play. I'm not really interested in going there. If he does play, you can actually make the argument that Dillon at 5,900, once his ownership goes all the way down, because right now he's coming through at 15%, becomes an okay play. But I don't think I'm going to be there. I mean, if Jones is ruled out, I'll have plenty of Dillon exposure for sure. He'll still be owned, but not as much as last week. And then,
Because a running back like that really is how you beat them, though, man.
Yeah, no, totally. And I think I'm going to go heavier on this game than the field. So like, I think this is an opportunity here. And I think there's real concerns from both sides. So let's talk on the Stafford side first. I'm really starting to talk myself into him a little bit. Now, main reason being is that he's coming through at 1.5% ownership or whatever. And is one of the more stackable environments in the slate. But you have to ask yourself a question, what's more real for the Packers D, right? They shut down Kyler, Mahomes, Russell Wilson, but then, or is it what Kirk Cousins just did to them last week, which was, absurd. If it's Cousins, you're about to get a very discounted Stafford under 7K with like 1% ownership in a very stackable environment. If the Packers are back home and they're, that defense is legit, I don't want to be too heavy on this game, but I think there's opportunity here to get different from the field.
Honestly, man, I'm leaning towards the first part of that because you have a team who just was watching the Packers while they were on a bye closely, and a team that's very frustrated after their losses, and a team that wants to get back on the right track. Yeah, and you got, like you said, very stackable options. I think Higbee's like 4,100, and he's getting more looks now without Woods. If you want to have balls and go with Beckham at 5,000, if he's going to be worked in more, then there's obviously Cooper Kupp. And if you want to go a little Van Jefferson, tons of options.
Yeah, I don't know, all those guys. And Kupp is only, I think, for the first time in a long time, coming through at under 10% owned right now, projected ownership. I think they're on 9 or something. So, I like that a lot. And then Higbee, the Packers have given up the 5th most catches to tight ends. He's pretty touchdown dependent, but I think he's a fair play also off of maybe some Gronk chalk or whatever. So, yeah, I'm going to be there.
He did get a few more looks without Woods there. It could be.
I'm not going to really be on Henderson in the run game, but I will be on that pass game a little bit. And then on the same thing on the Rodgers side, obviously he's dealing with whatever this toe thing is. But he went in to Minnesota.
I don't have COVID toe.
Yeah, I don't have COVID.
I'm sorry, man. I like him. I just do.
Yeah.
I don't have COVID toe.
Yeah.
It's basically illustrating that people are so ridiculous. They'll even try to, make it something about that. Like, he didn't. Whatever.
Yep. And again, like, you could get over this game by not going too heavy on it. Like, people aren't playing this game, it seems like, and I could see it turning into, I want to see what weather looks like in Green Bay. We're getting to that time of year, but it's just an option. Devontae Adams probably going to draw some Jalen Ramsey. Maybe it keeps his ownership down a little bit. I don't think it does. But Ramsey hasn't been purely shadowing. Like, they move people around. He stays on his side for the most part this year. So I'm not too scared. Anyway, I like the game enough where I'll be in on it and not go too heavy. But the field's going like nothing. So sign me up a little bit here.
Are we going to get good Herbert or bad Herbert this week? We're getting Herbert running for 100 yards like last week.
Herbert is the most frustrating quarterback in fantasy this year, I think, from a DFS perspective, because you need to have him on his good weeks. But when you have him on his bad weeks, it just tanks your lineup. So it's just like,
I'll make the same argument that I did the first time, though. I honestly think it's baked into the price.
Yeah.
If he was, you know what I'm saying?
It is.
Like, if he was slightly more consistent, he'd be 7,800.
I completely agree. And now Denver has given up top 10 quarterback fantasy scores to Hurts and Dak Prescott in back-to-back weeks. But they're coming off a bye, so they're freshly rested. They're at home. I'm a little bit scared. You gave them 2 weeks to game plan around Herbert. Herbert is susceptible to mistakes. I'm just a little bit scared of going too heavy on Herbert here. He'll be, you have to include him a little bit. But I'm a little scared. I think you could use Eckler. Keenan's coming through with massive chalk now that he's kind of back to that super high volume Keenan of years past. So he's coming through with like the second highest owned guy on the slate. You could use all of these guys. But again, we've talked about it. It's the same reason none of these guys completely jump off the page. There's red flags here. And you mentioned Teddy. I don't love Teddy here, but I can understand it. If anything, I like
it's if Herbert, it's actually piggybacking off what you said. You can't leave Herbert completely off your board, and what I'm just saying is correct. And if you can't leave him off your board, then you also can't leave that $1 $3 lineup of Teddy off your board. That's all I'm saying.
I think you use those pass catchers, and then I think you really, and I don't like this because it's a pure time share, and both backs haven't shown ceilings because of it too much. But Javonte Williams is starting to ramp up a little bit ahead of Melvin Gordon, and the Chargers have been just terrible on the ground, which is also the argument against Herbert, because the way teams attack the Chargers is through the ground consistently, which automatically brings it to a less, you lean towards the under on the over-under, a slower game. So that's why I'm going to have my constraints on this game a little bit, but I will be using Herbert.
Pittsburgh, Cincinnati.
Yep.
My first instinct is I'm kind of staying away.
Yeah.
I'm kind of staying away. Something tells me this is going to get it's going to be. I understand where you can easily say, "Well, do you see what happened to Pittsburgh last week? I mean, you see what Herbert did." Yeah, cuz you have one of those Herbert games at home. This also could be an outdoor Ohio game. Check the temperature. Pittsburgh D wants to play well. If you watched Cincinnati last week in Las Vegas, trust me, they were not that impressive. They got some touchdowns there at the end. Like, that was a low-scoring first half. He has all these receivers, but part of T. Higgins being the pyramid scheme is that he doesn't seem to know how to... Like, Boyd had like 8 catches, but Chase had a touchdown, but not a huge day. They're like the Bucks, but a worse version and healthy.
Yep. No, it's
like
fair.
The only guy you can rely on is Mixon, who nobody likes.
It's fair. And here's the thing in this game, though. It's like the more and more I look at it, the more I like it, just because the Steelers defense has been really leaky recently, And like, if Ben's going to be able to look okay-ish, where like he did on Sunday night last week, and Kate was able to come back and kind of get the ball out to receivers, like, this game definitely does have the potential to go over. Then again, it could just be a division slogfest, as you mentioned. I actually think 50-50 on which way this game goes.
Yeah.
But there's one constant in this game that I like on either game script, and that's Joe Mixon. The Steelers, once again, being completely overlooked. The guy that we used to just give so much shit to is finally this bell cow we've been waiting for years and years to be.
Just for health, we said we like him when he plays.
Yeah, but he 30 touches last week. I mean, by the end of the week, he was my favorite running back. I talked about it on that ETR show. Like, you need time to parse these things out. But he's coming through at 9% right now. The Steelers have given up the 12th most points to running backs. He fits into any type of way that the Bengals want to attack. And he's going to be a complete pivot to Jamar Chase, who's going to come through with double-digit ownership again in the Bengals passing game. So Mixon's my favorite piece.
What about Naji Harris? Are people going to be playing him?
Yeah, let's take a look at Naji Harris's things. The difference is Naji's 8,200.
I feel like people love him. Yeah,
actually, no, he's only coming through at 7. So both these guys under 10%. I like both those guys a lot. And then I like Deontay Johnson too, just because 6,600, without, I don't know if Claypool's playing, but without Juju, he's double-digit targets every week. And, it's both of those guys. Yeah, Claypool is playing, but, both those guys I think are in play. Deontay particularly at 6,600, in secondary stuff. So I'm not going too many primary stacks here. I might sprinkle in some Burrow, but, I like Deontay, I like Mixon, I like Naji a lot. Those are the guys that I'm looking at. And then I think the Bengals receivers are okay too.
All right. And now let's hit a game that I know me and you both like in certain ways. That's San Fran hosting Minnesota.
Yep. This is probably my favorite game to have pieces from. Here's the thing. Like, we talked about not liking any quarterbacks. From a tournament perspective, the guy that I kept looking at this week in that low 6K range is Kirk Cousins. The red flags there is not one of his comfortable 1:00 starts and on the road. But the Niners secondary is not good right now. And they're really banged up. They're really thin. And if you're going to look once again at guys like Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen who are getting no ownership whatsoever, these Kirk Cousins singles and doubles have been crushing all year, right? He's had a couple 30-point performances, a lot of high 20s. He had 28 again last week. And that's all you need at 6,300. So if you want pieces of Samuel and Ayuk and Jefferson, like, why not go to Kirk again here? And that's kind of the one of the quarterbacks that I'll be all over. I think.
I also believe you're going to have that whole Everson Griffin thing. I believe there's another lineman missing for the Vikings. I know a lot of people were probably disheartened by the amount of production that they ultimately got from Jeff Wilson. Keep a very close, pay close attention to see if they're going to rest Elijah Mitchell one more time. They said he's been carrying everything with his left hand all practice. He had finger surgery last week. So do you mean to tell me this guy's going to go, he couldn't even touch it with his hand till he's starting in the NFL game? So if he is a random inactive, I think people are scared off of Jeff Wilson because of last week, but he got a ton of work. And go look what Shanahan did to these Vikings the last time they played in San Francisco. It was like 24 rushes for Coleman, another 18 for Mostert, and they destroyed them on the ground. Yep. So when you have a couple linemen missing, and then you have the fact that Wilson screwed people, so his price is still down, it's like 5,200 or something like that, that's a sniffer selection right there.
I like it. I definitely like it. And Wilson was very close to scoring twice last week, which would have at least salvaged his floor game. And, last week was a weird week with all those, mid-price running backs we talked about that, was tough, with Wilson. I ended up going in on him on the chalk, but I think, maybe people are scared off of him a little bit here. So I like that too. So yeah, this is just a game that I think, makes sense to attack, whether it's secondaries. Debo is going to get ownership, but he's completely matchup proof right now. Ayuk, finally a big part of that offense, only 5,300. Again, the Vikings have been getting crushed through the air. So I really like all these pieces here. Conklin, I think, is an okay option too in correlation stuff. So, and then Kittle, Vikings have been okay against tight ends, but yeah, Kittle's still
pretty.
Right
he's in that point right now where he's rolling. I think.
He's only 6,400. So, all pieces that I like. Secondaries, game stacks. That's my favorite game to attack, I think.
All right. Anything you want to touch up before we visit the men's warehouse?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about Tyrod a little bit. I think that's really an option for you this week. I really do. Against the Jets, and they're at home, and he's 5,300, and he's got a rushing floor too. So
I want to point out that go back to when sometimes I literally will. I'll just forget somebody's name who I've said for years. Zach Wilson, correct?
Yep, that's the guy.
Yeah. What's wrong with me? Anyway, go watch Zach Wilson's games earlier in the year. Who was the receiver that really stood out in all those games when he was starting?
Corey Davis?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. But now people are just going to magically act like that wasn't the case, and they'll be playing Moore and whoever the hell else they want to play. Corey Davis, because Wilson's coming back. Remember, go look at his games. Very productive. You're going to get him at 4,800 going against Houston's defense. And on the other side of that, you're going to despise me for saying this, but if you have an expensive stack and you want a cheap secondary, go take your 18 carries and a touchdown last week, Rex Burkhead, against the Jets. 4,000.
That's not a bad call.
So you got 4,000 there. 4,800 Corey Davis. Take it easy and have fun with your expensive stacks in that Tampa Bay game.
That's not a bad call. I mean, obviously the Texans got rid of Lindsey. They're using.
Well,
Burkhead.
That's why I say that. By the way,
that's I kind of, I didn't even think about him, but the Jets have been such a disaster against running backs that makes sense. Yeah, Elijah Moore is 5,600 now. Obviously, he's kind of in the midst of his little breakout, but he has not played with Zach Wilson yet, and. Yeah, that makes sense. Cooks is going to draw ownership, but I think Cooks makes a ton of sense this week. And then I also think in these Tyrod lineups, you really want to, be able to get whoever you want in, McCaffrey, Adams, whoever you want. You go Tyrod to like Pharaoh Brown or Jordan Akins because the Jets are also bad against tight ends. I talked about how when I do the punt tight end thing, the 2,700, the 2,500 guy, I want it correlated because if he's scoring a touchdown, you hope that you have the quarterback or whoever it is to benefit from that. So I think that's fine too. So, you could really get a lot of ownership stuff.
So for example, if you took Carson Wentz and you did it with Pittman, you should probably just throw old Jack Doyle in there who's been getting, Cox, 4 or 5 catches.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or Ali Cox, who's a touchdown, who's the red zone threat. Yeah. I think those those are my favorite types of secondaries, right? My favorite types of secondaries are when you have like the main top receivers. So like Cousins with Jefferson, but usually it's not with Thielen, although they've shown that they can get there a couple times together this year because most of the time they eat into each other from a touchdown perspective, right?
Yeah.
But what makes sense on the secondary stack is having your alpha and then having a pass catching running back or a tight end. Like that's my favorite type of secondary stack other than the two kind of volume based receivers, which eat into each other's ceilings. From cash, I think it makes a lot of sense. From tournaments, yeah, you could go there, but that's something that I think the industry does completely incorrectly. They're like, oh, okay, Brady stack, time to do Godwin and Evans. And we just talked about, obviously this week's different with no Brown, but let's get the top 2 guys in there and that's it. That's what you're supposed to do. And like, no, it's really not.
That varies by team. You have to assess each team. There's a lot of variables.
It does, but like people are so scared to stack quarterbacks with the running backs. And if you really look historically, there's so many perfect lineups that have that.
That's what you're talking. Oh,
I'm talking both. I'm talking tight ends.
That.
I'm talking tight ends and running backs. Those are the 2 spots to double, not the 2 alpha receivers. It's usually that is the case.
Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, that's probably dependent on the running back because if it's a guy who never really catches the ball, then
of course.
No.
Of course, but people are so scared to put Zeke with Dak. Why? Zeke catches 4 or 5 balls every game. Like it's not, it's not like this thing. Oh my God, we have to stay. They're pivots to each other, and they can be pivots to each other, but they can also go together in most game environments. Like this is where I think the field is just so far off on certain things.
I like that. that. There are certain things in life I literally think that 90% of people are idiots on, and I'm happy to know that you have one as well. So why don't you take us down the road to the men's warehouse? and see what kind of Thanksgiving suit you can fit into now that you ate all that extra stuff last night.
Yeah, not too many. I got to get out for a run or something later tonight. But Justin Jefferson, man, I mean, ridiculous. He's 8,300. I get that he's priced up to where he should be. I think it's probably his most expensive number on the season. It is. But 10 targets, 11 targets the past 2 weeks. San Francisco quite literally has nobody in that secondary that can stop him. And guess what? No one's going there again. It's unbelievable. No one's going there again. He's coming through right now, 6.7% ownership. Even if that hikes up to closer to 10% this week, that is not enough for a clear top 4 receiver right now. You know, in a game that we just talked about the fact that we like. I love him with Cousins. I love him on the other side of Debo, Ayuk, Jeff Wilson. I just like him by himself this week. I mean, 8 catches, 169, and 2 touchdowns last week against Green Bay. 9 catches, 143 against the Chargers 2 weeks ago. Now, this is in San Francisco. A better matchup than that Chargers matchup, who are very good against outside receivers. Clearly, he's matchup proof. I mean, this is an easy one for me. Under 10% Justin Jefferson, under 8% Justin Jefferson. Sign me up all day. Men's warehouse pick of the week.
My men's warehouse pick of the week is a guy who can be absolutely frustrating to watch, but has the opportunity to blow up at any point, and that's Saquon Barkley. He's 6,300. I remember watching him in game 1, game 2. They say, oh, he's cooked. No, he's not. He is just one of those guys who needs 1 or 2 plays, and he can break them. And he didn't get enough opportunities for that last week.
No,
and
game,
this week,
write that game off.
Yes, this week against the Eagles, his second game back, feel a little more comfortable. Another full week of rest for that ankle, and then they fired the offensive coordinator and Jason Garrett. You know they're going to run a bunch of screens. You know they're going to have the ball in their best playmakers' hands, and especially if what Gary said about Tony isn't playing. Shepard probably still isn't playing, so you're looking at Galladay, Slayton. He's going to be getting his fair share of touches, and I know Philly's been playing great lately. Division matchup. And Barkley's had some games against the Eagles in the past, if I remember correctly.
Big time.
So Saquon Barkley, you got to get it before he pops. There's been a few opportunities this year where, he remained relatively low compared to what he could be. I think this is one of those opportunities. So Saquon Barkley is my men's warehouse pick of the week. You're going to like the way that he looks. We'll guarantee it. And I will take it straight from there into my lineup, where there maybe are some great plays at quarterback, but man, this one's tough for me to sniff out. So I'm just gonna go to the reliable Brady stack. If there's something to sniff, I would sniff it. I got no scent. I got that post-COVID, you can't smell and taste for however many weeks. That's what I got. So, when you have that, you might as well drink some plain water, and that's what I got with Tom Brady right here. So I'm double stacking him with Mike Evans because, as Gary said, Godwin's coming through as extremely chalky, and then you got Evans all the way down there at like 7%. And then I guess I'm just going to have to eat it with Gronkowski. A lot of people are probably going to play him, but he's just going to get a certain amount of looks. He just is. It's without Brown there. Yeah. I'm going to be very scared to use Gronkowski going forward, knowing Brown's going to be back and he's going to be operating over the middle of the field. But give me this one last chance to get him relatively cheap with the lower owned receiver to at least maybe stand out a little bit. And that's what I'm going to go with my primary stack. As a guy who's really never played Taylor this year, you've heard me on and by the way, Gary, I told you earlier in the year when I'm going to have my all right Mocha Joe moments where I got to say, all right, Mocha Joe, I was wrong about Taylor. There was no Marlon Mack even after the trade deadline, and he is getting more use than he ever got beforehand. He'd never really gotten more than 20K. Now they just said, no. They've elevated him to a different strategy. They'll give him 40 touches. They'll give him 80 touches. So I, for the first time, against a good run defense just like last week, I'm going to do the running back stack against the Brady, the running back on the other team against the Brady stack. And let me tell you right now, I will lead this show with I'm sick if Brady goes off and Nyheim Hines is on that field the whole time and does exactly what I said last week. Oh my God, it's going to happen. Play Nyheim Hines, all of you. Play him, just play him. Or if you think that's going to happen, you can swap him out. I was thinking about this while Gary was talking for Cooper Kupp because I didn't think Kupp was going to be under 10% owned. So if you want, you can do that. So that position is Taylor's / Cooper Kupp.
There you go.
I'm also going to take someone Gary hates, but I think in a game like this where they get down, I think he could get a long touchdown. I love when he plays indoors. Give me T.Y. Hilton. He's a couple weeks back into it. Had a few catches last week. I understand, but if people can play speedsters on other teams, I think he's a little bit better than just your average speedster. Bad pass defense, whatever coverage they do have will be rolled over to Pittman. I think it's a decent week to have him in there. So that's a double stack, double run back, unless you want to switch that to Cooper Kupp. Then I'm going to, because how did I fit all these guys in? I did the Burkhead Corey Davis. Burkhead, I already explained it, going against that Jets D. They got rid of Lindsey. Corey Davis it looked fantastic with Zach Wilson. So give me the first crack back at that. I think Corey Davis is going to be playing, and maybe he was limited practice, but I'm pretty sure he's going to be playing. And then give me the Giants defense, who I paired with Barkley. Yep. So that's my lineup right there.
Yeah, no, it makes a ton of sense. We got a couple funny crossover spots here, but it's. I really like your Barkley pick, by the way, just because I do think that the new offensive coordinator, Freddie Kitchens, will be throwing the Freddie Kitchens sink's worth of volume at Saquon. He's got nothing else.
And not for nothing. It's just something we talk about or at least I do. You just saw it with the Raiders, by the way. Well, it wasn't in prime time, but when somebody looks bad in prime time, hop on them the next week.
Yep.
And the Giants looked dreadful. Everyone's going to be scared to take Giants.
Absolutely dreadful. It's very true. Very true. All right, so my lineup here. I am doing a scary thing, which is fading that Tampa Bay Indy game, but I kind of mentioned a little bit of my concerns. I think it's a way to get a little bit different on the slate, so purely tournament, but give me Kirk.
Here he comes.
Give me Kirk Cousins.
Okay.
I've not used him yet this year. The whole field has used him. I'm finally going on him against San Francisco. They've given up a lot of points all year. So Kirk to Justin Jefferson. I'm going to go Ayuk on the other side of that. Just a little bit pricey to fit Samuel in this case, plus the chalk. So I like Ayuk there. And then I'm going back to Joe Mixon, who was my favorite play of the week at the end of the week last week. 7,500 matchup does not scare you at all. I think people are going to be off him once again for the McCaffreys, for the Taylors. And I think he's the same type of volume guy right now as those guys. So, give me Mixon. On the other side of Mixon, I'm going Deontay Johnson. We talked about him. 6,600 fits into a lot of builds. I'm going a very heavily correlated lineup this week. Nearly every single part of this lineup has correlation involved. So my other running back is James Robinson. We didn't talk about this game, but 6,200 against the Falcons' putrid defense. We know when he's fully healthy the amount that they want to utilize Robinson. At that price, as long as he is fully healthy, which I believe he is, he still has the question mark. Was limited, but
no, he's healthy. The last couple of weeks they do that, and he gets all the work. He got all the work.
Yep. So I really like him at 6,200 this week a lot, and then I like him with the absolute cheapest defense on the slate, which will draw some ownership. But with the Jaguars, I mean, they're playing again. They're the Falcons at home. I'm totally cool with punt defenses this week. It makes a lot of sense. There's we talk about not liking quarterbacks, and then it adds up to liking some of these cheap defenses. So that's fine. And then I am going to go also with a very crusty Texans-Jets secondary stack. Give me Corey Davis as well. And I'm gonna go Fowler Brown at tight end at 2,800. The Jets, Brown came back from injury last week. He's clearly their top favorite guy with Tyrod because they made Jordan Akins inactive. He's a red zone threat. They like him on the field for blocking. So, just at 2,800, being on the field for the majority of the snaps, he could easily fall into a couple catches, maybe a touchdown. So,
I said that about Brian Edwards.
Yeah, well. So there you go. I got the skinny Cousins to Jefferson with Ayuk, Mixon, Robinson, Deontay Johnson, Corey Davis, Fowler Brown, Jaguars defense. Definitely very heavily tournament lineup there, but it actually has some balance to it as well. So we'll see. It's a weird week. We're gonna dive in some more, but I think when stuff is weird and chaotic, there's opportunity for all you out there. So enjoy it. It's hopefully some fun games.
I think that one's gonna come back to bite you, Gary. They're not the big games ain't busting 2 weeks in a row. That's really asking for something.
We'll see. I mean, and the thing is, like, that game does by far have the highest over-under of the week, but there's no other, like, the Green Bay, Minnesota, or whatever, Minnesota, San Francisco is right underneath that as far as opportunity costs. So
yeah, I know. I could be dead wrong. Just a quick thing, just from a standard evaluation, the Vikings are so hot and cold, like they will sometimes, they could have won every single game this year. Sometimes you watch them, you're like, why did they give Cousins any money? They need to turn the page. Then they look like a clear playoff team. They've had back-to-back wins against Chargers and Packers. I think San Fran, go watch how San Fran played these last 2 games. They have a lot of swagger back. I know Kelsey can sing it all he wants, but they have serious swagger back. They are gashing with runs. Garoppolo's got Kittle back, and now he's working. I think they're going to beat the shit out of Minnesota.
Yeah, but you know
like
what?
literally, I think they're going to crush them.
But then that sets him up so well because Cousins does great in these garbage time situations. You know what I mean?
Oh,
so
by the way, this isn't even about fantasy.
If they're up by three touchdowns,
fantasy.
If they're up by 3 touchdowns,
saying.
I'm happy. You know what I mean? Like I want San Francisco to go into the second half up 18 points. Like that would make me thrilled as a Cousins guy this week. But you know, in that case, the Vikings have been bad defensively. Like they get themselves in shootouts nearly every week.
What's Ayuk's price?
53.
53? Yeah. I bet you if you put him in your flex, and I'm interested to see if you put that in one lineup, swap that out for Jeff Wilson, same price.
Yeah.
I would love to know. The final score.
My only thing is the Vikings have this tendency of setting these tones in these games of pass first. Like they're setting the pace. So, you know, maybe you go to you sprinkle some Garoppolo on a crappy week too. Like as you said, they have their swagger going.
Dude,
I don't hate that. Yeah, I don't hate that. So
I didn't want to tell you I was embarrassed.
No, it's not embarrassing. Were you more or less embarrassed than when Jimmy Garoppolo was caught walking out with the porn star? That's the real question.
Well, you know, what goes around comes around, all right? Because he ain't the talk of the town anymore.
No. But
I like Jimmy. Like Jimmy.
He's got a 30-point performance under his belt this year. They put up 30 points in back-to-back weeks, and you know he's only put up 15 points in both of those games. But we like Samuel, we like Kittle, we like Ayuk, we like the matchup. Yeah, Garoppolo's cool.
By the way, they essentially rested in the fourth quarter.
Right.
They are playing at full confidence.
No. Yeah, the Niners. The Niners are definitely hitting their stride. They're laying the hammer down. They killed the Rams 2 weeks ago, but again, they played the Jaguars last week. But they are. I agree. It's a letdown spot for the Vikings. I like the Niners in the game, but I just
it's weird. Well, the Vikings might have their set. I'm just saying, if you happen to be, you know, one of those people who live in illegal sportsbook wagering, and you happen to be over the age of whatever the hell it is. Man, I don't really bet on games like that anymore, but God, I think they're going to win by like 24 points.
Yep. Very possible. Very possible. So
we'll see. And if they don't, I guess I just won't show up last week. Have a great week, everybody. Hope you had a great Thanksgiving. I have some decent hopes for this weekend. We'll see how it goes. And whatever, I guess we'll see you next week. Thank you for returning once again. And as always, share the show because it's week 12, which means you got 5 weeks left of my wise ass.
Yeah, and if you don't share and tell people about it, subscribe, like, review, you are going to end up listening to even more Mariah Carey Christmas music than you would normally in the next 3 weeks. So it's just that's the way karma is going to come at you. You're going to hear it every single place you go.
You're going to get that NSYNC song. You're going to get every whatever that shit is. Yeah, man, we really are miserable. At least you're Jewish. You have an excuse to. I don't even have an excuse.
I like some Christmas music. I just that Mariah Carey song. You hear it fucking everywhere, man. I mean, you walk into the fucking gas station, you hear it. I think it's playing right now in this Jewish house.
Who the fuck likes Christmas? Who really goes chestnuts roasting? And people like, oh yes. Who downloaded on their iTunes chestnuts roasting on an open fire and listens to it in March? It's fucking the candy corn version of music.